The murder of 19-year-old Lindy Sue Beichler has been shrouded in mystery for decades. Stabbed 19 times and sexually assaulted in 1975.
A cold case dating back nearly a half-century appears to have been cracked this week. Investigators in Pennsylvania arrested David Sinopoli.
A 1975 homicide is expected in court today. The preliminary hearing for David Sinopoli is set for today. He was arrested back in July.
Oldest case finally solved. Lindy Beichler, 1975. Another sad but interesting crime case. Here the victim was brutally raped and killed in her home. This is the craziest of all the just-solved crime stories we have for you, trust me. I will be sharing the details with you, but first, like this video and subscribe to this channel. At around 8:45 p.m. on December 5th, 1975, Lindy Sue Beichler's aunt and uncle visited the newlywed 19-year-old at her residence in Manor Township. Blood was found on the front door, the wall of the foyer, and the carpet, and Attorney Adams described the scene as horrific. According to Adams, Beichler's body was found on the floor close to the living room. Beichler had a knife sticking out of her neck, and she had wrapped the handle in a towel from her own kitchen. 2 knives were used to sexually abuse her and then stab her 19 times. Her wounds suggested she had fought for her life, according to the autopsy. Lindy Sue Beichler, who was murdered in Manor Township, was unpacking groceries when she was attacked. In the flower store where she worked, 19-year-old Beichler had spent the day of December 5th, 1975, wrapping poinsettias in huge satin ribbons. At 5:15 p.m., she left the house to pick up her husband's salary, went to the bank to deposit the cash, and then went grocery shopping. She shopped at John Hare's Village Market, where she spent $1.46 on 4 bags of food before heading home. Soon later, around 6:30 or 7 p.m., a male is believed to have entered her first-floor flat. He attempted a sex attack on her while stabbing her 19 times. According to earlier news accounts, her aunt and uncle discovered her at 8:42 p.m. with a butcher knife still in her neck. There was no evidence of a break-in. The apartment's floors and walls were covered in blood. The lamp on the end table had broken. Food items had been placed on the kitchen table. She had kept the knife, which had a blade measuring 8 inches, on the wall of her kitchen. The murderer's big, bloody footprint was found in the kitchen. At first, detectives thought that whoever took them either followed Beichler inside or knocked on the door while she was putting them away. Few weeks to her murder, Beichler had told loved ones she was afraid someone was watching and following her. The killer was probably somebody she knew, according to the investigation. David Sinopoli was arrested on July 18th and charged with Beichler's murder over half a century after her death. Now your next question would be, how did they catch him? According to the New Era, the police in Manor Township determined that Beichler's husband was not a suspect in her death because he was at work at the time. Police claim they've interviewed about 100 people thus far. The Intelligencer Journal writes in 1975 that D. Richard Ekman, the district attorney for Lancaster County, decided to increase the number of state police investigating the case. Police have reportedly interviewed between 250 and 300 people, according to a 1976 story in the Intelligencer Journal. The police think the murderer is still in the Lancaster region. Mary Shinzing, 43, was found stabbed to death in her Columbia, Missouri, home on March 5th. Similarities between her death and Beichler's are being investigated. March 16, 1976. Kenneth Dale Arndt, 33, of Columbia, is accused of killing Shinzing. The police have stated that they do not suspect him in Beichler's murder. On December 26, 1976, Beichler's loved ones learned that someone had desecrated her tombstone at Boehm's United Methodist Church in Pequea Township. The stone had red paint painted on it and had been chipped and scratched. The destruction occurred after the end of November. In 1977, an urgent letter was received by the police in Manor Township. It reads like it was written by the same person who stabbed Beichler and defaced her gravestone. Police deem the letter a hoax and decide not to publish it. On October 30th, 1982, police were thinking of interviewing mass murderer Gerald Eugene Stano regarding the murder of Beichler. At least 37 women were murdered before Stano was apprehended in Florida in April. When Beichler was murdered, his father was visiting from East Hempfield Township. The police have reportedly circulated images of Stano, but no one has recognized him, as reported by the New Era. Manor Township Police on January 4, 1983, is quoted by the New Era as saying that Stano is not a suspect in the murder of Beichler. The district attorney's office reportedly paid $2,000 to two California-based psychics in 1981 or 1982 to analyze the Beichler case, as reported by the Intelligencer Journal on January 18, 1984. The psychics all agreed that Beichler's attacker sported a tattoo on his arm, and that he was of African or Middle Eastern descent, with black hair and eyes. Lancaster County Detective Paul Wagner speculates that the psychics were describing Mark Capolupo, who was shot and murdered by a guard in an escape attempt from Lancaster County Jail in 1975 after being charged with sexual offenses in Lancaster County. Capolupo matched the description given by the psychics, but he was already eliminated as a suspect. At the time of Beichler's stabbing, he was hard at work. Wagner and a state trooper go out of state to interview someone who may have information about Beichler's death. Henry S. Kenderine, Jr., the district attorney, claims the interview was fruitless. In 1997, Lancaster County DA's office detectives sent Beichler's underwear for DNA testing. Reports of semen being discovered in her underwear led to a male DNA profile being generated. This year's investigation was solved with the help of Parabon Nanolabs' principal genetic genealogist, C.C. Moore. The Sunday News reported on April 2, 1989, that authorities attempted to utilize modern DNA technology to test a spot of dried blood they believed belonged to Beichler or her killer, but were unsuccessful. After Lancaster Police Chief Joseph P. Giese retired in June 1992, the county hired him as an investigator to focus on cold cases. The passing of Beichler is among the earliest. On December 6, 2000, a full year after Beichler's murder, police made the decision to make public the letter that had been addressed to Manor Township. A behavioral expert with the FBI tells a reporter for the Lancaster New Era that the killer probably didn't write the letter. According to the expert, the author may have only played a supporting role. Lancaster County detectives reportedly presented Beichler's case to a group of 50 crime specialists at their monthly meeting in Philadelphia on June 16, 2006, according to LNP. Beichler's half-brother, Mike Little, reportedly put up a billboard on Route 30 near Route 283 on December 3rd, seeking information concerning her murder, as reported by the New Era. In 2018, LNP reported that Beichler's husband, Philip D. Beichler, pondered whether the same technology that led to the arrest of Mirak's killer may lead to the identification and capture of the person responsible for his wife's murder. Moore and Parabon, believing they had the DNA of Lindy Sue Beichler's killer, began working with the district attorney's office and the Manor Township Police in 2019. Moore, in a press conference via Zoom in the year 2020, detailed how she had used DNA evidence and the family tree of the unidentified subject to narrow in on a suspect, and found evidence suggesting that person had deep ties to the Lancaster area. The investigation team found out that Sinopoli and Beichler shared an apartment complex. The government subsequently began keeping an eye on Sinopoli. On February 11, 2022, his DNA was recovered from a coffee cup he used at the airport and then discarded. The DNA from the semen in Beichler's underpants was compared to DNA from Sinopoli's coffee cup. Now, it is very smart how they did this. Before the sun came up on a February morning, David Sinopoli and his wife sat in an airport coffee shop with two other couples. The 68-year-old man from Pennsylvania had no idea that police were following his every move. Terminal A of Philadelphia International Airport is where he threw his coffee cup, and they hurried to get it back from him. Police in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, had been at a loss for nearly half a century trying to solve the murder of 19-year-old Lindy Sue Beichler, a newlywed who was discovered stabbed to death on the floor of her apartment. Hundreds of tips had been followed up on. A task force had been formed. Presentations had been made to crime specialists, and as the years wore on without resolution, psychics were consulted. The dropped coffee cup and DNA testing were the keys to solving the county's longest unsolved crime. When a DNA expert at Reston, Virginia's Parabon Nanolabs, concluded that Beichler's killer likely had Italian ancestry, he or she narrowed their search to Sinopoli. The researcher C.C. Moore identified Sinopoli as a key figure after combing through old newspapers and government documents. The way this case was solved was mind-blowing. And the happiest thing about this is that they were able to catch the killer. It definitely wasn't easy, but they did it. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel.